What's good, folks? It's Nightmare Frame here with a new Warframe video coming at you with a new updated Eidolon hunting guide. It has been years and a substantial amount has changed, but the basic fundamentals remain. Also, a massive disclaimer: Eidolon hunts are the only thing in Warframe that are a massive gear check and require decent mechanical skill. So if you aren't prepared for that, then this guide isn't for you. Don't complain if you aren't ready for the grind. This is a start of a new Eidolon hunting series that will hopefully help the casual and intermediate player base understand these fights even more. I will start with the basics and move into more intricate parts. But before you go into the night and engage the full Eidolon fight, make sure you finish your War Within and Sia's Vigils quests, and farm up your focus schools. There will be separate videos for that. There are 3 tiers of Eidolons, the first being the Terrorist, and moving on to the Gauntalyst and then Hydrolyst. These fights progressively get challenging, and the only way you can start the next tier is to defeat and capture the previous one. But for the majority of your first time, you'll be stuck farming up the first tier Eidolon, just to farm up your focus and amp parts. When you head out into the night looking for an Eidolon, they always spawn within fresh water sources like lakes, rivers, and ponds, and not in the ocean shores. You can tell that an Eidolon has spawned by its large energy beam that is emitted from the water and can be easily spotted while up in the air. There are 3 major parts to an Eidolon fight: shields, Synovias, and cap shot. When you engage an Eidolon, they are coated with a special shield that is immune to all types of damage and can only be damaged by operator void damage, and this is achieved with your operator's amp. Once the Eidolon shields are depleted, it will have vulnerable parts on its body called Synovias. These Eidolon Synovias can only take damage from your weapons, whether it be exalted weapons, Warframe equipped weapons, and even operator amps. And they are not affected by any abilities or status effects. The Eidolon Synovias are alloy armor, which takes 75% more damage from radiation, 25% from cold, and 15% from puncture. This is why you mod it for high crit, multi-shot, and raw radiation damage on your weapons to take out these Synovias. Once the Synovia is destroyed, you will stagger the Eidolon and it will fall to its knee and will retaliate with a sentient energy spike. Its radial wave attack that pulses out deals magnetic damage and drains you of your energy. If you do not have shields, this can result in a one-shot kill. There are ways to defend yourself from this attack by using mods like Rolling Guard and time the dodge into the incoming wave. Other ways are your operator's void mode and a Warframe that can negate damage and status effects. But being in void mode in operator will not protect you from the energy drain. This is why people run Arcane Nullifier. This does require to farm Eidolons to get that Arcane, but it is really cheap on the market, so be sure to grab yourself one. Now, after the Eidolon's retaliation, it will sink into the ground and re-emerge in a new location. Once re-emerged, the Eidolon will have its shields replenish, and again, they must be taken down. This will continue until the last Synovia is destroyed. But what if you don't want the Eidolon to disappear after every limb takedown? Well, this is where an Eidolon lure comes into play. Now, what does an Eidolon lure do, and how does it work? Eidolon lures spawn in Grineer camps, and you can only gain access to them by killing and hacking them. Now, this hacked lure is yours, and it allows you to keep the Eidolon in place and capture it, and also claim its best rewards. But this can only be done if the lure is fully charged. And to charge the lure, you need to fill it up with Eidolon Vomvalyst energy. Vomvalysts, or Voms, are small sentient heads that spawn in specific locations. You need 3 Voms to fill up 1 lure. They have 2 forms, the physical and ethereal form. The physical form can be damaged by your weapons, and the ethereal only from operator void damage. Fully killing the ethereal form will drop its energy. You can pick up this energy by walking over it and bring yourself to the lure to charge it. You can tell you have the Vomvalyst energy by the blue glow around your Warframe or operator. Here are some other useful tips to charge the lure. Only 1 Vomvalyst can be tethered to a lure in its physical form. By shooting it while tethered, will have it instantly consumed by the lure. If there are 2 or more Voms next to the lure, shooting the non-tethered ones first will put them in their ethereal state, and then follow up by shooting the tethered one last, and this detonates all surrounding ethereal Voms, and will have all of them be consumed into the lure. Once the lure is charged, you can engage the Eidolon and destroy its limbs without having it run away. An individual lure will tether to a maximum of 2 broken Synovias. The initial lure that is tethered to the broken limb is the Loot lure. so make sure you mark it so you know which one is which. So for the first tier Eidolon, you need 2 charge lures to capture it, and 3 for the last 2 Eidolons, since they have 6 Synovias. So a total of 8 lures are needed for an entire hunt. Once all the Synovias are taken down, the Eidolon will fall, weakened but not yet defeated. This is its healing stage, where it will call forth Vomvalysts to help heal it. Vomvalysts will spawn right underneath it just before it fully collapses. Use these additional Voms to help charge the lures. Once the Eidolon gets up from its healing state, more Voms will spawn underneath it. Use up the remaining Voms to fully charge the remaining lures. Also, during this stage, its entire body is vulnerable, meaning it will take damage from any parts of its body. And this is where you unleash your final blow to finally defeat and capture it. When the Terrorless is taken down, its energy will be absorbed by the lures, and the charge lures that were tethered to the Eidolon will drop your loot from Eidolon shards and Arcanes. These shards will help you convert them into focus without a cap, and the brilliant Eidolon shards will help you unlock special nodes in your focus schools. You can only progress the next Eidolon if you have captured it. If the lures were not tethered to the Eidolon and you shoot it, this will result in a kill, which only grants you a smaller reward, and you cannot progress to the next fight. Once you have the Eidolon shards, head over to the shrine and insert the shard to begin the next tier Eidolon fight. It's pretty much the same fight, but the last 2 Eidolons are bigger and have a few unique attacks that you need to avoid. Now that you have the general idea of how the fight works, I will break it down for you in a 4-man squad setting, which is generally what most people do. Being in a full squad, each person has their own designated task. The team composition is 2 Volts, Wisp, and Harrow, or 2 Volts, Nova, and Harrow, but the last comp is more of a speedrunner strat. Volt is the main DPS under the Unairu Focus School, utilizing the Unairu Wisp node. Using the second ability of the operator on the Eidolon will summon Unairu Wisps, and these Wisps will seek out players within a 50-meter radius, and this will grant players 100% more base damage on their amps, increasing their outgoing damage. While the rest of the teammates will be running the Madurai Focus School, utilizing Void Strike to multiply your damage by 10% for a percentage of your energy consumed. So on a full bar of operator energy consumed, you gain 1000% damage multiplier on your amps. The second Volt is there to be one of the consistent damage multipliers, providing them with a constant uptime of electric shields, which multiplies your modded crit by 200% for any projectile going through it. That includes your amps. Since amps cannot be modded, you need to buff them as much as possible. The Wisp is there as the lure handler, the one responsible for gathering and charging them. I do not recommend using Trinity at all, because people will develop bad habits and rely on healing instead of actually doing mechanics and DPSing. And plus, whatever Trinity does doesn't benefit your future hunts. Take it from someone who has done multiple hunts as a novice until now. Lures do not. I repeat, lures do not need healing. Literally just move out of the way. Wisp provides more utility with just her motes. She gives passive healing to the party and increased movement and flight speed, fire rate, and attack speed. She also can teleport across the map, transporting the lures with ease. And finally, the Harrow is there to negate the damage done to the party and buff the DPS's crits. As you head out into the night, the group will split up. The 3 Void Strike members will force spawn Voms and make their way to the Terrorlist to take out the shields. The VS will get into Archwing and hover slightly behind the left tree when you get out of the spawn to force spawn Voms, and they usually spawn around these areas. As the Vomvalysts spawn, mark it for your host, which is the main Synovia DPS. The reason you force spawn these Voms is when your DPS fails to quick charge the initial lure, so there are extra Voms. Or if you aren't in a full 4-man squad, because anything under a 4-man will only get you 2 Vom spawns. So, this is helpful when the DPS quick charges the lure. They can get 2 at the lure and 2 at the 4 spawn. Now looking at the DPS point of view, you need 254% power strength, all the Archwing movement speed mods, level 8 Railjack Intrinsics unlocked for that perfect force spawn. However, you can still force spawn them, but it will be slightly slower. Make sure you stop slightly above this tree on the right camp and slowly move closer until you see a small blue flash. This indicates that Vomvalysts have been force spawned. Shoot the lure and suck up the Voms with Idzel's 3 using the Cold Snap augment. This holds them into place, and this is the only Archwing you would ever need to use. It is the fastest, and its third ability is a massive utility when charging lures. If you only get 2 Voms, you know where to get the rest. However, if your teammates fail to force spawn Voms for you, no worries, you will get 1 Vomvalyst under the Terrorist after you hit it a couple of times and then take out the shields. This is called a 2+1 quick charge. When the first limb is taken down, this is where your lure handler goes out and gets 2 lures, only 2, and park them for the DPS. When the final limb is taken down, this is the moment where the lure handler will go out and grab 5 lures. It is the DPS's responsibility to charge the 2 lures that were brought to them. Having a Railjack crewmate with a Tenet Cycron will help you charge lures pretty well. Why the Cycron? Because it will chain to nearby targets when it hits the Eidolon, and these targets are the Vomvalysts that spawn underneath the Eidolon. This weapon on the crewmate doesn't need to reload. It is an infinite beam, and it is a better option than the Kuva Nucor. When the Eidolon gets up from its healing state, the VS Volt will go pre-shield, placing shields on the designated spawn points of the Gauntalyst and Hydrolyst, as shown here. As the Volt is pre-shielding, the Harrow presses 4 and walks over the Eidolon goo to take damage and buff the DPS. Once you, as the DPS, has 3 charged lures, take down the Terrorist and quickly move to the shrine. This will teleport all the loot there and you're ready to start the next fight. The reason for having 3 charged lures, despite needing only 2 to capture the Terrorist, is because the 2 lures will be destroyed in the process of capturing it. And now you have a charged lure ready to keep the Gauntalyst in place. Now for the shrine, make sure you put the shards in order. Please let the DPS, aka the host, marked with the number 1 in the squad list, place their shard in first and then follow up with the rest. Or if the DPS fails to place in their shard first, they should go last because the shrine can bug out. DE still hasn't fixed this issue till to this day. And now you're ready for the next Eidolon encounter. The 2nd and 3rd tier Eidolon have 4 designated spawns. You can tell by the beam where they will spawn. For a visual example, here you go. Let the lure handler use their Madurai Void Strike first to take out the water spawn shields. Once the shields are down, as the Eidolon spawns out of the water, this is where the lure handler goes out and charges the lures. Make sure the lure handler is back before the final limb takedown to get the Voms that spawn underneath the Eidolon. As you're about to start the final fight, have the lure handler park the 3 remaining lures at the shrine, and the DPS picks up one of the parked lures. So, when they take out the Hydrolyst limb, that lure becomes the Loot lure. The lure handler's job once again is to take out the water shield and teleport back to the shrine to grab the parked lures, bring them back into the fight, and leave them parked close to the Eidolon, as lures will detach if they pass 50 meters from the Eidolon. Once the Hydrolyst starts to get up from its healing phase, make sure the VS Volt places cap shot shields for the DPS, and the lure handler places healing and haste motes underneath the shields to help keep the DPS alive and buff their fire rate and flight speed. And of course, the Harrow presses 4. This is when the lure handler and Volt go to the gate and place their necromech or K-drives at the door to keep it open as the DPS flies in after killing the Hydrolyst to keep the lures right next to the gate. And make sure to park them just before you touch the stairs. Suck up the loot and go in to restart the new fight. Only the host has to go into Cetus and back out to start the new instance. Never ever take Eidolon Hunt bounties. They will slow you down the entire fight and can bug out your rewards. Now, to help the lure handler, I will showcase lure and Vomvalyst spawn location. Voms usually spawn near the lures, so it'll be easier for you. And now I will quickly go over the gear requirements. The amp is the 177 Ramp-like Prism, Propa Scaffold, and Certus Brace. The amp arcanes are Eternal Eradicate and Eternal Onslaught. Operator arcanes are Magus Repair and Magus Melt. I will cover amps in depth in the upcoming amp guide. Your focus school nodes in Zenerik, Madurai, Nerimon, and Unairu need to be unlocked. There will be more info in the focus guide. and now the Archwing and the build. These are all the mods you need. And for the Railjack Intrinsics, make sure to unlock all rank 8 intrinsic nodes. And now quickly going over the builds and helmet abilities for each of the frames that are being used. Alright folks, I did say Eidolons are gear intensive and do require a decent amount of effort, and this is why the casual player base get annoyed or don't bother doing them, because it requires more than 1% of their brain cells being used. More details on amps and how to shoot, along with focus school setups and guides, will be released. But for those who found this video informative and helpful, please be sure to leave a like, share, and subscribe for more Warframe content, streams, and so much more. Do refer to the description. Thanks for watching, and as always, peace.